Welcome to the MSS Ghana Forum, another great step on the MSS World Tour. You are very, very welcome. It is a pleasure to be in Ghana. As with other events in this series, we are combining an end customer, MSS and MSP community to ask, how can we work more effectively together? Why are we asking this? Well, more and more people are working with third parties, and this needs to improve in terms of security. We run this event obviously in other geographies. We've done it in other West African geographies as well. And I, of course, as many of you know, have run events in Accra before. So it's lovely to be back. Akwaba. It's a good juncture to thank the kind support of Global Secure Solutions Ghana Limited. Edem Glymin will be on in a little bit, and it is a great pleasure to have his support. Welcome to the MSS Ghana, and it's a great pleasure to start us off with a question that asks, who should lead? Who is the future leader? Who is the future top post holder? Yes, we might say CISO at the moment, but we should definitely investigate the shape of the top post holder. And on our panel, we are very pleased to welcome Emmanuel Bamfo Dickson, Chief Information Security Officer, Pan-African Savings and Loan. And we are also joined by Eric Jhessim, and we're also joined by Yaw Boachie-Agyeman. I will keep my eye on the chat function as we go through, and it's great. You're the early birds. Thank you for joining so early in the morning. We are looking at this top post holder, and yes, we might do a shorthand with the word CISO, Office of the CISO. We'll get into all of that, but let's set the scene. We're in Ghana, okay? Does it make sense to talk about a threat landscape in Ghana, or is cyber, wherever you go, so it really doesn't matter. I'll tell you what, Eric, let's start with you and I'll work my way around.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And a warm welcome to everyone. Yeah, so jumping right in, definitely as long as, we are looking at a community, a settings where people are involved, there are activities, transactions, definitely there will be motive, to commit crimes or fraud and the likes. So once there is a form of a motive, we look at possible means of committing those crimes, and there is that opportunity, then we are looking at, a threat landscape. So definitely for a place like Ghana, a country like Ghana, yes, the threat landscape is something that we will have to really take a close look at, because we have critical information infrastructures and all that, and those need to be adequately protected. So yeah,
absolutely. And what's nice about this panel, I should have mentioned in the beginning, everyone sort of has a hand in the world of finance, which I think is quite telling, because I know that a lot of expertise stems from that area. Nana, let's come to you. What about Ghana specifically? Is there enough of a difference when, I don't know, comparing to Nigeria or Benin? I mean, is there a flavor of the Ghanaian cyber threat landscape, or would you say we're just blending with the wider cyber security community?
Okay, so good morning once again to all our participants. I would like to say that the threat landscape in Ghana, I would say it has its peculiarities. Okay, so currently, as it is, even in the public sector, there are a lot of services being migrated onto the digital front. So there's an increased need to have suitable security for all these services which are being made available online. There are also so many instances or multiple instances of collaboration between private players, financial institutions, telecoms, and fintechs, and so on, to make services generally accessible online. Okay, so all these nascent services, okay, end up making our threat landscape rather peculiar, because a lot of products and services are now being launched, and we would need to have the necessary protections in place. I mean, currently, most of our major attack vectors would be most probably phishing. Okay, phishing is where we industry-wide, phishing is where we have most of our attempted attacks. Okay, and even recently there was a widely publicized downtime with one of our major service providers, okay, which sort of affected the country wholesale. It was a really big incident. So our threatscape, what I'll say is that though we threats tend to occur globally, okay. So when I say globally, for example, at the inception of the recent hybrid war, there was an uptick in all manner of attacks in our space, but we also have our peculiar challenges because we have a lot of services being migrated online. A lot of services which hitherto were done manually are now being migrated online. So we also need to consider that when evaluating our threat landscape.
Okay, and that's very important. I like that, and it does speak to a big shift to e-commerce within Ghana, which I like. Emmanuel, let's then blend that and sort of say, we're looking at the top post holder, the CISO. Maybe we're not going to call them a CISO in future. Maybe we give them another name. This top post holder has to deal with a big transformation, and maybe working more with third parties, maybe not, maybe bringing everything in house, could be. Who is that top post holder today in Ghana? Where's their background, and how have they sort of come to be that top post holder?
Okay, so good morning, and thank you. So to start off with, if you say who is that top post holder, you rightly said maybe for now we are calling that individual a CISO, but in future we might couch another name for that person. But for where I sit, to be at the top, you should be someone who has the technical side of things, someone who has the business side of things as well. For now, if let's talk in the context of a CISO, okay, so in the context of a CISO, basically a CISO is someone who has all-round knowledge. A CISO must know the people they are working with. A CISO must know the processes involved in their daily activities. A CISO must understand the technology they are working with, because if you do not understand or you do not know what you have, you will not know how to protect them as a CISO. And so for someone to be at the top post, I think that person should be all-rounded. The person should have all these qualities. That is, should understand the kind of business, should understand the kind of environment you are operating in, and as well as should understand the people and the technology that is involved. Maybe you might not, you shouldn't be an individual who has a focus on just technology and then you leave the other side of things. You should be an all-rounded person. You should have bits and pieces of all the various sectors that your field relates to.
Yeah, and that sort of broadens the scope, because I think a lot of people have this impression a CISO is a full stack developer that then decided security was nice, and it's not just that, right? It's and so some people might be put off from the role, or some people might absolutely want to stay where they are. Now I think we've got our other panelists, Agbenya. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome. So we're talking top post holder of the future, and we're wondering about the shape of the CISO or CSO, whatever this leader is today. I wonder if you could speak to the sort of the pressures on the top post holder when they have to work with third parties. Emmanuel was just saying, and Nana was just saying, it's a broader scope than we might originally imagine. What about the pressures to learn legal, learn business, learn contracts, you know, things like that. What's that doing to this top post holder and their work?
Okay, so good morning. I must say that I'm on the road, still on the road getting to the workplace. So you may hear a little bit of noise in the background. Pardon me for that. Okay,
No problem.
that's quite interesting. The role of CISO has evolved over the years, especially when you look at the different economies of the world, the Western Europe, America, Africa, the maturity levels are different. So in the cyberspace, there's so many players, regulators. We have legal folks. We have business leaders. So for me, what I'll say is that it is the maturity level of the organization, of the space in which you operate, that will go a long way to enable the CISO work to be very effective, because the CISO is dealing with so many people. So sometimes the power play can also be a challenge, where if the CISO is not well supported at the very top, it will be difficult for CISO to make the necessary impact, because at the end of the day, it's not just about knowing the technical and the business side of things. It's about getting the cooperation from senior executives, so that in terms of security program that we have to implement, though you have all the user support. So what I would say is that certain economies are more mature in the area of helping the CISO do this work better. So what I want to say is that we need to help improve the knowledge base of the business leaders, the business owners, to see the importance of the CISO, so that the work of the CISO will be much more easier. Because at the end of the day, a CISO can put up a program, vulnerability management program, which I have seen as one of the weakest links in the area where we are experiencing a lot of ransomware attacks. Where these attacks are not coming from zero-day attacks; they're coming from well-known vulnerabilities that have been patched over the years, over the period. So since simple things like this are not being done, because sometimes the CISO is not hasn't got the necessary power to be able to influence decisions. So I will start by saying that this role of CISO has to be understood at the very top. When that is done well, we can together help improve the cyberspace, because the CISO cannot work alone. He must develop the competencies of other functions like legal, procurement. The CISO cannot know it all. It's not possible for the CISO to know everything. The CISO must be a leader who can guide people into knowing certain areas of cybersecurity in that space in which they operate. For the legal person who understands cybersecurity, you will to handle the cybersecurity space that relates to legal affairs. You still need not be a legal person, but one is able to channel the focus of people in the areas in the cyberspace where they must know and be effective. I believe the CISO work will be more effective going forward. That will be my initial comment.
Well, thank you, and that's great, because that paints a picture of the languages they must speak, but it doesn't mean they have to be the general counsel. I like that. I like that approach. So Eric, coming back to you, and obviously we're wondering about this top post holder because we're wondering about their interaction with third parties as well, and making it more secure. So it doesn't mean that you have to go and become the CFO. However, there seems to be a push to say, oh, the CISO needs technical acumen, but also business acumen. There is an accusation of some CISOs, oh, you've forgotten everything technical that you've built up because you're not sitting with the SOC 2 engineers all day, every day, which I think misses the point of what the CISO is trying to be. So if you're not going to be the CFO, how can you balance those skills? Is it literally a case of just reading a lot of contracts, or is there something more structured that the CISO can do to balance technical and business acumen?
Yeah, in spite of the fact that we lay emphasis on the reality where the CISO needs to have certain amount of knowledge, as far as the various business arms are concerned. He also needs to have that ability to drive the information home with the various business process owners. So when you take the financial units, for example, the CISO needs to have that synergy, to be able to work seamlessly with the financial unit. And that will come about as a means of, or as a result of the financial unit knowing and appreciating the role of the CISO. You see, everything becomes easy once the understanding is there. So if the various units understand the criticality of the role of the CISO as the office interfacing with the various business arms in order to secure the organization, the role of the CISO will become easier and things will move better. So that is one approach. And it's also very important to get senior management buy-in, because without the buy-in from the top, it becomes difficult for the CISO to carry out what he intends to do. So it is very important to first get senior management commitment, because they need to be fully on board with the CISO's program. And then the other business process owners or the heads of the various departments will see and appreciate, the role of the CISO. And then that synergy will just naturally take shape by itself.
And that buy-in, that's really, really key. And especially I can imagine in a smaller company, and we will later have a session on the smaller enterprises, it might be harder to get that buy-in. Might be. But Nana, what if we then look at that shape? Because surely the future CISO might become a CRO, depending on the size of the organization. And imagine a micro business, the CISO is probably the CEO. So it's a bit of a spectrum, isn't it? Isn't it better that we look at the CISO as more of a coordinator, because you will have your security engineering team if you're larger, but then if you're smaller, maybe your team is a third-party managed security service. So does that make you a translator, a coordinator, an architect, rather than a CISO?
Okay, so my perspective on this really has to do with the fact that the CISO is more of a coordinator. Okay, so the CISO would need to work with both their those they directly work with. Okay, so that is maybe the information security team, and in some instances even the physical and corporate security team. They would need to work with them, and then they would also need to work with the other business units. Okay, though I believe that a CISO should have some technical knowledge, okay, to be able to translate technical decisions. Okay, they should largely have some limited competence in areas like legal, procurement. Okay, because now even in the finance space, there's a lot of regulation ongoing in the information security space, which requires a decent understanding of some legal processes, even some procurement processes, and so on. So I am of the viewpoint that a CISO should be someone who is able to coordinate, to, as my good friend and colleague Eric said, someone who is able to bring all the other stakeholders together to drive the business requirements of the organization's information security. We are not in the situation whereby information security or tech can operate in a vacuum. It needs to be seen to be providing value to the business, and this can only be done if there is thorough stakeholder engagement, so that all the other varied perspectives can be included in decision making. Yeah.
And those perspectives, I think, are key, especially in this debate. Third party end customer. It's a lot of perspectives. So Emmanuel, do you think we've reached a stage, at least on the enterprise level, where we don't need to fear an MSS partner in that they're not going to replace in-house IT security? They're sort of more of a partner, more of a stakeholder. And if that's the case, how do we make them part of the team, even though they're not part of the team? Because I mean, there must be a line of separation, of course, but how do we build that up, especially in the enterprise level?
Okay, so looking at an MSS, basically they are more of a service provider. We have actually gotten to a stage that we do not need to be afraid of an MSS. They are actually a part of the game. They are, I should say, an enabling function or a support to our work. And so looking at it this way, an MSS is more of, let's say, they are part of the family. Whatever we need to put in place to work with an MSS is available. But working with an MSS also comes with its own issues. Okay, you need to look at regulatory requirements. So let's look at the context of Ghana. Is BOG allowing you to outsource your security functions to an MSS? If they are, I'm sure it is up to a certain level. Maybe you are just outsourcing your SOC function to an MSS, but the other internal security functions, you are going to play it yourself. So as a CISO, you shouldn't be afraid working with an MSS, but you should try and make sure that whatever functions or whatever business agreements you have with them is within context and what the regulators require.
And that's key. And is that the Ghanaian privacy law? What was the law you mentioned?
Okay, so currently, when it comes to information security, what we are all abiding with is the BOG cybersecurity directives. So they have spelled it out clearly what we need to do, especially with the financial organizations. And so we are just abiding by that set of rules that have been given by the BOG. And so if BOG allows you to work with an MSS, then you shouldn't have a problem. So I wouldn't use the word fear. There's no need for you to fear an MSS, because in some contexts, they are actually helping you save costs. Because as a CISO, you are going to give your top management a budget to work with. And so if maybe internally your budget is not, you're a small organization and your budget is not enough to support those functions, that is by what's it called, recruiting a SOC team and all those stuff that comes with cost, then you might have to outsource that function to an MSS to do for you. And so if you're outsourcing that to an MSS, then you shouldn't be afraid, or to say you shouldn't be in fear that to work with an MSS. Just that you should make sure that whatever you are doing is within context and what the regulators require. Because if you go contrary to what they say, then you might find yourself wanting. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, please. Yes.
Can I just come in?
Absolutely.
Okay, so just to add to what my colleague just said, actually, in the banking space, the regulator, which is Bank of Ghana, has enjoined all banks to comply with ISO 27001 as the standard for information security management, together with what we call the payment card industry data security standard. So these are the two key standards that in the banking space we are required to comply with. So in terms of allowing a managed service security provider to maybe outsource your SOC to them, one thing too is happening in our space. Our cybersecurity authority is now regulating the activity of cybersecurity players, so that over time there'll be much more confidence in placing your SOC operation in the hands of a third party. Because before you operate in the Ghana space, we have met certain minimum requirements, especially with the cybersecurity authority, to give the necessary confidence that you can really secure the digital assets of the bank in which you are protecting. So over a time of maybe 2 to 3 years, that the maturity of MSP in the eyes of our cybersecurity authority will be at a level that we all have the confidence of outsourcing our SOC if you really want to do. Sometimes financial constraints will prevent you from getting your own teams, but over time, if you're a big financial player, you can get your own in-house team. But if you don't have the financial models, you want to outsource that security service to a third party. But cybersecurity authorities are ensuring that over time, the maturity level of those service providers will be at a level that we all have the necessary confidence that when we place our digital assets in their care, we are safe. Thank you.
And I like that, because maybe that paints a picture of where the rest of the industry is going. Because just as the CISOs in Ghana, basically you are the origin of it. I mean, it started in high value banking, maybe some manufacturing. Maybe this legal framework will trickle down. No, sorry, you got your hand up.
Yes. So I also just wanted to add that there are also some national laws that we are bound by. So something like the Data Protection Act. There's a Data Protection Act which governs how customer data is processed. Okay. Yes. So those are also some of the laws that we need to abide by. So there are, I mean, just dovetailing to what we discussed earlier. There's a lot of activity going on in our cyberspace. It's quite an exciting time to be a cybersecurity professional, because you tend to be part of. There's no better feeling than being part of something which is being built. So that's just what is currently ongoing.
Yeah, and that puts you at the forefront of this relationship, which is what we're sort of going for. So Eric, coming back to you, obviously we are thinking about the future CISO. Maybe they will have lots of hats. Do you think that in future we won't find a CISO, but an office of the CISO? Maybe there is a top CISO, but there'll be this office. You'll sit maybe with legal. You'll still have some PR friends. You'll be there with finance. I don't know, some sort of office rather than an individual.
Yeah, it's exactly the picture I was painting, even as you go ahead with your question. Yes. So what I see, or what I believe most organizations are practicing now, especially in Ghana, it has to do with the office of the CISO. So we will have the CISO, and then we have the various units under the CISO. So we can have like cyber defense, we can have the networking guys, we can have a team to interface with the legal team, the actual legal department, so that they have that communication as far as legal concerns are pushed across. Yeah, so I think that looking or going forward, what's the bigger picture, what I believe will serve the organizations better will be to have an office of the CISO, just also so that the CISO doesn't get overburdened, so when we have units working under him, that communication flow is there.
And I mean, I like it, but then how would we structure it, Eric? I think maybe that's a good one, because maybe there'll be an element of the virtual office of the CISO, like your MSS friends and your remote X, Y, and Z. And Nana said, well, maybe we need to bring in corporate security. I know that's a convergence question, but how could we really structure it? Would it literally mean that the CISO could be just a manager, an excellent manager, someone with no technical ability, if it's an office?
Definitely the CISO will have to be someone with some level of technical abilities, because it becomes a challenge. We will all agree, how difficult it is to break into the technical space. So definitely the CISO will have to be someone with some level of technical knowledge in order to communicate the business decisions to the technical side, so that we will not have a situation where the bank is, or the institution or the organization is looking to correct something on their website, whilst at the very same time they have vulnerabilities to patch on their servers. The question is, which one do we go for first? Is it the customer facing? It can be a logo or an icon that we can afford to let some time go whilst we fix it, or a vulnerability that could cascade into like a serious risk issue. So all those things become areas, gray areas where we'll see technical decisions haven't been made, we see business decisions haven't been made, and the CISO will be, you know, someone who has this ability to look at all this from the business angle, the technical aspect, and be able to make the right decision as to, okay, this is what we need to do right now in order to protect the organization. This can afford to wait a second longer, you know, so the CISO will have to be that one, that person to play that role. So some level of technical knowledge definitely is needed. And also, like my colleague Emmanuel said earlier, understanding the industry, understanding the organization, the direction of the organization, the mission of the organization. I believe most companies are in business to make profits, to make money. Now, the CISO needs to understand this in order to translate it into the controls we need to put in place in order to protect the organization as it embarks on its journey, you know, to make profits, you know, and all that. So the CISO is definitely someone or a person with many hats. For that, we can't afford to look down on that. He must wear many hats. You know, he will be the one to interface with the MSS. If we have the MSS on board, you know, if we have outsourcing, if we need to do insurance, like my colleague Nana said earlier on, you know, we need to look at, it can even be GDPR. If we are housing information of EU citizens, then we need to look at GDPR. We don't necessarily have to be in the EU to be compliant to GDPR. As long as we handle the information of EU citizens, will now have to look at GDPR. The CISO has to be the one, you know, in this position to let, you know, the team know that, look, we are handling information of EU citizens. We need to be GDPR compliant. If we are handling information of California citizens, we need to be CCPA compliant. So it all comes in and ties in, you know, into what the CISO does. That is why I said earlier on that the CISO will need to have units under him, else all this, trust me, will be overwhelming in just a day. Yes.
And so to stop it being overwhelming, some people will say, oh yes, well, definitely need a third party to help you out. But if that's the case, Emmanuel, I wonder, how can we make a better choice or make a better decision about this third party? Because third parties, maybe some SaaS providers, maybe some service providers, might come up with an idea, say, right, AI, it's the next best thing. And then your CEO hears the word AI, he gets really excited, but it's kind of your job to moderate that and go, well, yes, but okay, we can do it, but you know what I mean? Like, so how can the CISO make a better choice for the company with these third parties?
Okay, so when it comes to relationship with third party organizations, I should say that we are actually already dealing with third-party organizations. If you find yourself in an environment that you are leveraging on cloud computing, then obviously you are working with a third-party service provider. And so yes, so we are actually already there. But to look at it from this context, that a third party, as a CISO, if you are to engage with a third-party service provider, you, as I said, I always say you have to look at the regulatory requirements first before even going for that. You painted a scenario of a CEO who has heard about artificial intelligence and wants to, for the CEO, they are enthusiastic about the whole thing and they just want to jump into it. But for a CISO, you have to sit back, relax. And okay, so for instance, if I was the one that the CEO came to me and said that, hey, Emmanuel, I saw this AI technology that I think is going to help the organization. For me, the first thing I'm going to look at is what are the threats when it comes to artificial intelligence. So I'll be looking at that. That will be the first thing I'll be looking at. For the CEO, they are looking at the fancy stuff, the nice technology and all that, but I would be looking at the technical capabilities of that AI and relate it to what the organization wants to do and look at what we want to achieve when it comes to cybersecurity. And so I would say that it's okay working with a third party. It's fine working with a third party. You just have to, as a CISO, make sure that whatever services the third party is going to render for you it's within laws, and then it's something that's you can work with. You can. I don't know how to put it. Your risk appetite. I should put it that way. You should also look at your risk appetite. If it's something you want to go for, you can go for it, because obviously there are third party providers that are also doing a good job out there. And so for a CISO, you just need to blend in, look at what the business is doing, look at what you need to do as an organization, look at what's going on in the industry, compare it to the current threats that's around, and then you make a decision. So making a decision to go for a third party is not actually the challenge. I can just wake up today and say, okay, I want to work with this company, fine. That's making the decision is not actually the challenge, but making sure that the service license agreement and whatever you're going to have falls in line with what the organization and what the industry requires. Then I should say that is where the challenge is, not about making the decision to work with them, because we can all just agree and say, okay, let's work with this person, but we need to be sure that whatever we are doing with that third party falls in line with, first, what the organization wants to achieve when it comes to cybersecurity, and then secondly, what the regulators also require.
And that's an excellent point, because many of these solutions do detection, okay, perfectly fine. Mitigation, probably also fine. Response. And response is a very wide spectrum of things that can happen. So you need to keep tabs on that, absolutely. Agbenya, you were there just a moment ago. What are your thoughts on all this? How would you like to work more effectively with a third party? What are your top tips?
Okay, so for our space, the regulator has made it clear on a number of things that we need to do in terms of doing first due diligence on the third party to be sure that in the first place they are practicing a well-established information security program. And in their view, a third party that is certified to ISO 27001 gives a certain level of assurance that they are doing a good thing. So that becomes the basis for which we can even start doing engagement. And if you haven't done that, we want to find out whether you have a program to get that done soon. Okay, so for me, there are a number of ways to look at this. If you look at the ISO 27001 and 2 controls, they have been structured in a way that it touches on human security, logical security, supply relationship management, legal matters. So for me, in my case as a CISO, what I've done is that I have shared the controls with the various functions, bring that understanding to them, for them to understand that the work of information security doesn't lie in the hands of only the CISO. It's a collaborative approach. So for example, the controls that talk about human resource security, HR is in charge of that. Controls that talk about supplier relationship management, our procurement team are in charge of that. So by guiding them, controls that talk about legal matters, our legal team is in charge of that. Controls that talk about logical security, our IT security team is in charge of that. That's how I am operating my environment. But we have limited human resources in the office of a CISO. So you cannot stand aloof and say, I don't have people, so the work will not go on. So I have strategically shared the controls among the various functions and bring to them what the standard is saying, 27002 standard, so that it becomes easy for a collaborative approach. So the CISO at a certain time will take on the role of a responsible person, an accountable person, somebody who is consulted and informed. So I look at the racing model as something you need to juggle in between. There are places in the security space that you have to be responsible. There are places where you have to be accountable. There are places where you have to be consulted. Places that you have to inform. So that has been my approach over the past 2 years that I've been a CISO. So that would be my contribution.
Love it, and those are great top tips. Conscious of time, but Nana, what are your top tips, as it were? You know, because I'm sure third parties want to know how they can be better as well. So what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so for third parties, I would recommend that they have a verifiable information security program in place. It may not necessarily need to be ISO 27001, but they should have some form of program, a program which has been attested and verified by a third party, which shows that they have certain procedures and systems in place to limit the risk to their customers. Okay, since their customers would also invariably house some of their data with them. Okay, so I would just say that they should work at having such a program in place. It really instills a lot of confidence in the customer. Okay, and then yes. So that for me, that would be my top tip. That especially since the regulatory environment in Ghana in the financial space is now picking up, we would need to comply to a lot of those regulatory requirements. And more often than not, when a decision is being made on a service provider, it's one of the main factors in arriving at a decision would be their compliance to some verifiable information security program.
Very nice, and that verifiable program is probably key, isn't it? Because otherwise they don't make the RFP, RFI stage even. Emmanuel, sorry, you had your hand up.
Yes, so I just wanted to add up to what Nanael said. So for third-party organizations, I think if they should be able to understand their business partners, because I wouldn't outsource functionality of information security to a third party that doesn't understand what I am doing, or that doesn't understand my aims and visions, because most third parties maybe might fall on a line that they are just providing a technical service. And so for them, they are just plugged into your systems and they are just providing a technical service. But it goes beyond that. So for me to be comfortable to outsource a functionality of information security to a third party, I think the third party also should understand me as a partner. The third party should understand the business process, the culture of the company, the people in the company. So the third party should also move beyond just providing a technical support. They should understand what we want to achieve as an organization. And so if we are all on the same page, then they can better provide the services that we need from them. And from that angle, then I'll say that, okay, I'm comfortable and I think I would want to outsource that functionality to this third party. So it's not just about providing technical assistance to us, that they are just plugged in and they are just monitoring. They have a SOC somewhere and they are just monitoring and just allowing, denying stuff. Yes, they need to understand what we want to achieve as an organization. That's from an angle. If I'm going to select or if I'm going to work with a third party, that is what I would require from that third party.
And that makes total sense, and I really appreciate that. And yes, that blends with our CISO of the future topic as well. Eric, so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I just want to still throw more light on what Emmanuel just said. It is very important for that third party to go the extra mile in understanding the needs of the customer, because there are situations where even the customer, excuse me to say, but the customer doesn't even know what he or she wants. So it would take a smart third party to be able to be that listener and be able to go beyond, just go the extra mile in providing, even beyond providing for going beyond what the customer even thought he or she wanted. So it is very important, and it's also important for the third party to understand that as long as they are coming in to be part of the processing of data, like once data resides with them, data is an asset, in our age. However, data can also be a liability. So the third party needs to understand this. And once data comes into their domain, they need to know that there are associated risks that they need to make sure that they put enough controls in place to to prevent those risks from crystallizing. So it's very important for third parties to know this, have this at the back of their minds, and demonstrate to the customer that yes, we know these are concerns of yours, and we've already made provisions for that.
Yeah, they know what you want before you've asked for. It's like Amazon before instead of Amazon Prime. And anyway, that's another joke. Nana, so what do you think?
Yes, so I in sometimes when we have a lot of compliance requirements, okay, we may seem to feel a little bit bothered or irritated, okay, because you need to run your processes in a particular way. It may involve cost, it may involve all manner of other requirements. But I would just like to say to the third parties that some of these regulatory and compliance requirements which come up would ultimately make the third party much more competitive, okay, and even expand their scope from our local environment to the global market, because a lot of global players really require you to be compliant to certain particular standards, okay? So I would just like to encourage all of us to embrace some of these new compliance and regulatory requirements which are coming up. They can be burdensome in some instances. They can really be burdensome, but ultimately they add to our value and also increase our reach.
And that will tie in nicely to a segment we've got at the end of today's session, where we think about even regional partnerships. You should be able to look at a standard and say, well, this person from Nigeria is actually adhering to this standard. This person from the UK is able to provide services because there's reciprocity. And I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves there, but I think that'll tie in nicely. But we are now a little bit over time. So Eric, Nana, Agbenya, and Emmanuel, thank you very much for being such great panelists. I will give you a big virtual round of applause, and I will put you back in the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
See you soon. I'll put you in the audience now.
All right.
And please, yes, do comment and keep the comments coming from the audience. Now, of course, I mentioned before that we are supported by Global Secure Solutions. And we're very grateful for their support in Ghana. So we'd encourage you to link and connect with Edem Glymin, who's coming up next. Thank you, Henrietta. Great to keep the discussion going. Someone messaged me and asked about our YouTube channel. Yes, we do post segments to the YouTube channel, and I'll put it in the chat here so you can see. It's a labor of love, anyone that does a YouTube channel, so please do feel free to subscribe, because it is good fun and very valuable, I might add. Now let me bring up our next panelists, because we've just talked about the top post holder and the way in which they might interact with third parties. So let's bring up our next session, and I'll give them an introduction when it appears on the screen. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so we are very pleased to be at the MSS Ghana, and we are very pleased to welcome Edem Glymin, Head of CyberSecOps, Global Secure Solutions Ghana Limited, as well as Attah-Osei, Content and Research Assistant at Joy Business Ghana. A slightly different panel in that we are combining a journalism analyst with an MSS specialist. It's wonderful to have you, Edem, and wonderful to have Global Secure Solutions support the event. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Philip, and I think you guys had a very great discussion. I really enjoyed it.
Well, no, I really appreciate it, and I think we're going to really make a lot of good headway here. So the reason we have Isaac on as well is because we're sort of interested not just on the enterprise level, but we're interested on the rest of business. And I know Isaac, you comment on that quite a bit. Maybe Isaac, it might be a good place to start. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about where you're sort of coming from?
Yeah, sure. Good. I'll say good morning to everyone, and thanks for having me. And my name is Isaac Attah-Osei, like you mentioned, and I work with Joy Business here in Ghana, Media House. And for me, I think this is very interesting, and it's also important because of where we find ourselves locally and right now in this country. There's a lot of promotion from government about transforming our economy, digitalizing our economy, pushing the whole digital agenda, and security is one important aspect of digitalization that we cannot lose track over. And so it becomes very important that we start having these conversations in these times, that as we start building our digital economy, start transforming businesses, start pushing them all onto that digital platform, we also build secure systems that will be able to safeguard against threats and attacks in the near future. So as my initial comment, I'll say it's very important and it's very critical that we start having these conversations to create that awareness, to be able to encourage a lot more people get abreast with the need to build secure systems.
And that's key, because for all the internal cybersecurity talk, and we'll do a lot of that today, right? Cybersecurity, talking to cybersecurity, I get it. It's important to think, what about the end customer, especially in the SMB world? I know enterprise is also here, and it's good to blend the two, but the end customer, they just want it to work. They just want something secure. And that's why, it's possible to blind the customer with terminology and so on. Anyway, we'll get on to that. So I appreciate your angle, Isaac. Edem, let's then make another picture. We've already asked our CISO friends if it makes sense to talk about a threat landscape in Ghana, but let's do that again. Is there a Ghanaian threat landscape from an MSS perspective, or does it not matter? Is cyber security services the same wherever you go?
Interesting question. First of all, good morning to everybody. It's really a pleasure to have this event, and we're very proud that you've been able to bring the roadshow to Ghana, and the discussions have been amazing, great. That's a very interesting question. I think Ghana, like every other country else plugged into the internet, has risks. We have our threat landscape. For us as an MSS, I think what is really important to us is understanding that threat landscape. What kind of attacks are we experiencing? So from work that we've done over the years, we've noticed that there are companies that are being targeted by these advanced persistent threat actors, and that is alarming. So what we want to do is, using these frameworks like the MITRE, attack models and stuff, I think that where we come in and sort of where we are positioned is helping these CISOs, helping these internal security teams by bringing, a different aspect of defending and protecting against those typical tactics and techniques that are employed by APTs. Because the truth is, most of these CISOs and cybersecurity personnel with these organizations, they are overwhelmed with a lot of work, okay? Sometimes they're under-resourced, they don't have, supporting team or personnel to support them. And so it can get overwhelming. So I think that there's that need for an add-on so that they can free up their time to focus, like the other panelists said in the first panel discussion, to align more and focus with, getting that buy-in from senior management and driving their programs, because they don't want to get bogged down in all of this, operational security work and, looking at blue team, red team, and all that kind of stuff. So I think we definitely have a threat landscape that we need to understand and know how to defend.
And that really makes sense, because well, okay. So today, this is just me sharing. This is our fireside chat. I can be a bit more entertaining like this. I'm wearing my Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority tie. Okay, and the reason I'm wearing the Gate Power tie is because I used to run events in Ghana, as I said, in different spaces. But back when I was doing it in sort of 2013, 14, and 15, one of the big things was the leapfrogging technology of mobile, you know, and GSM platforms, and the way in which it was transforming just every single business. So I'm sort of leading with that to say, you know, maybe Isaac, have you noticed that the world of the MSS is a leapfrogging technology in that it's helping every business become more secure? Because yes, they're now all connected via mobile, and you know, some fiber optic in some places, but you know, a lot of mobile availability. Do you think that this is the tail end of this, that everyone is suddenly waking up to the need to be more secure, and therefore the world of the MSS?
Okay, so I think yes, that's true. Again, like you put it, with the advent of technology, we having, you know, a lot of things being done with our phones, with our computers. It's again become more imperative for us to consider MSS, you know, as a way of bridging that, you know, secured cyber gap. Now, yeah, I always say this. Well, let me just paint the picture for you here, or what's happening here in Ghana. So now our space is now beginning to grow. Let me put it that way. A lot of companies, let me say SMEs and MSMEs, you know, are now being encouraged to, you know, digitalize their operations. There's a lot of talk about cloud computing, you know, cloud operations. And so now what next thereof is going to be security. Now, if my systems and my data is going to sit on cloud, what the next thing we're going to ask is security. I like I always say, I use this very simplified example. Now, if I'm to be living in a cottage, I'll probably be alone. There may not be a need to fence my house. But now, when a lot of people, you know, begin to move in, settlements begin to expand around me, I may have to build a wall around me. And that's where I think, you know, MSS and MSSPs, you know, come into play. Again, I also think that the way things are going, a time will come that you'll be forced to, you know, jump on, or the system will have to push you on, because if you don't align, you may be left out. You know, probably even now, there are some people who think that, you know, why should I even care about cybersecurity, because I'm a small business owner, and, you know, who is going to attack me, or who's going to send, you know, a phishing thread or link. But you realize in the trends and in the data from the Cybersecurity Authority that now a lot more companies are being attacked, especially through, you know, some of the basic ones, through phishing and all of that. And so a time will come, you'll be forced to rope in. And because that area is quite expensive to jump on, MSS will come in handy to be able to fill that gap, because then I probably may not be able to afford a CISO on my own, or afford the infrastructure on my own, but I may be able to, you know, have the services of an MSSP, or I mean, an MSS, or someone like Edem, for instance, who can, you know, provide me these services at, let's say, you know, some reasonable cost that I can be able to align. And if you look at the space and then the growing trends, I see that, or I foresee that in the near future, you know, the system is going to push you on. You're going to be forced to take some of these measures. And again, I must say that with the Cybersecurity Act, hopefully going forward, the implementation is going to take full effect. There are going to be some, you know, specifics, or there are going to be some routines and some requirements that you have to follow as a business, especially if you fall in the critical, you know, the CIIs, or the critical information infrastructure space. And so going forward, I think this is how it is going to play out from where I sit. And for businesses, especially the small and medium-sized businesses, I think a time will come that the boards are going to be, whether they like it or not, they'll have to jump on. The CEOs will have to jump on, because we need to build that solid protection system, you know, to protect our space.
And you raise an important point. Many SMBs may not think they are attractive, but there's a lot of automated exploits that just hoover them up, or someone sees an undefended port on the internet somewhere, and they say, "I'll have that. Thank you very much," which is key. So Edem, on the MSS side, when you're talking to customers, what are they asking for? And or are they asking the right questions of you? Are they saying, "Oh, make me secure," or are they asking more informed questions of you?
It's a catch-22 situation, because I think that the whole advent of the typical MSS is something new. I think it's also has to do with the timing. I think we sort of knew that there was a gap after COVID. We could see the trends, remote working, cloud computing, all these trends lead to more vulnerabilities that need to be, fixed. Now, because it's new, and because, like Isaac said, this is a very interesting time, in Ghana right now, with the regulatory impact, from the central bank and from the Ministry of Communications. It's sort of becoming, or it's going to become, a prerequisite or a requirement for doing business very, very soon. So we are actually in this, we're on this train where, it's very slow. The awareness and the understanding that people need to protect their assets has moved, very slowly, and it's now sort of merging with this requirement from a regulatory perspective. So your typical end user is unfortunately not very proactive. So even in the conversations, it's usually one-sided, because we are the ones proposing what we think that they need in terms of protection. And so what we learned in terms of bridging that gap was, engaging them in the process. So what we do now, for example, is we've taken, or we've called all the important points, let's say from the Bank of Ghana directive, which is mainly focusing on cyber response, cyber defense, cybersecurity risk management. And we've lumped that up into what we think, or how we interpret that, and how we think we can partner with them, and leave an open door for them to appreciate, oh, okay, yes, actually, this is what we actually need to do, and come up with a partnership and come up with a solution together. Because sometimes when you are the one always sort of pioneering or fronting or leading, it can cause a gap if they're not, totally clued in, or they don't really have the full understanding. So I think it's a bit of education, and then aligning with these compliance and regulatory requirements. And definitely we're at a point now where it's a topic that nobody can avoid or ignore anymore, and I think that's really where we are in the space right now.
I like that, yeah, and that paints a great picture. Isaac, you had your hand up, sorry.
Yes, great. I think, yes, again, Edem made a very important point about education. I think, though, after COVID, a lot of things have changed. We are, beginning to get more enlightened to this whole digital space thing. I think we need to be able to increase awareness, because now what I see is that a lot of customers, or a lot of end users, like Edem will put it, are beginning to get concerned if they hear news about a particular service provider systems being, compromised of a sort, or being attacked of a sort. They are beginning to get concerned. They are beginning to raise questions, raise issues, find alternatives. So you realize that gradually, more and more people are beginning to, come to terms with the fact that cybersecurity is real, and the more we get, become up and doing with it, the better for us. And so I think we need to be able to increase awareness. Again, for example, you realize that a lot of the attacks happening now are social engineered attacks, which are, someone would say, pretty basic, you understand. But however, these, or the end user can know about these things if they are aware of such attacks, and they are aware of how to go around, these attacks. So I think awareness is key, and we need to be able to increase the awareness from the end user, even the way up to the way, top to the board management level.
Yeah, and that awareness. Well, I mean, maybe that makes the CISO, following on from the earlier debate, the chief awareness officer, if they cannot remain with the SOC analysts and the engineers in the weeds, which anyway, might or might not be the case. So Edem, I'd be interested then structurally. Obviously, there's end customers that just don't care; they just want a service. But the managed service provider and the managed security service provider, some people are saying, "Oh, it's going to blend," but actually, the MSS often has no real intention or desire to fix printers. It's not their job. So do you see either a landscape where IT service providers are just adding security as an add-on, or where maybe we'll see a partnership between the MSSP and the MSP because of economies of scale? I mean, what would that sort of look like?
Yeah, that's very interesting, because in coming up with a model, you need to ask yourself, first, you need to understand your market. You need to understand what the needs are. You need to understand if you have the capabilities, do you have the platform services, do you have the tools? And I think traditionally, we've sort of known MSPs. I think there have been MSPs in Ghana for a while now, fixing printers, networking, stuff like that. But then obviously with the way, the global threat landscape has evolved over the years rapidly, with the increasing sophistication and complexity, it makes sense for MSPs to get into that space as well. Because if you're an MSP and you already have existing clients, for you to be able to still guarantee that you can still do business with them, you need to have some kind of an add-on, which will be the security services. Because now those end users or those customers are going to be looking at you and asking you questions that are security related. So if you don't have those capabilities, you could lose your market. Because if another MSS comes in who is specialized only on security services, they could take your place. Now, that question of, whether an MSP can add on the security services or contract an MSSP and sort of white label those services depends on a few things. It depends on your in-house capabilities, your resources, technical acumen, training, certification, all those things. So I can see instances where, and I think we have a few examples here in this country, where an MSP has gradually over the years, with the market need, evolved and transitioned to start providing security services, and then I think you have players like us that actually just came in straight with a whole MSS model, where we are looking at provisioning security services or managing security services on behalf of end users who cannot afford to have a CISO, who cannot afford the tools that they need to build, an in-house SOC team. And it depends on the dynamics. I think it's easier for a company in Ghana who is an MSP to look outside right now to partner with an MSSP than to look internally and see, okay, look, how do we sort of go and look at company X because we think that they are specialists in this, and how do we work together? I think it's because it's sort of still a new area. It's still growing. And I think in terms of the dynamics, we are not at that maturity level yet. So you would tend to see from, I think, my analysis that some MSPs locally would rather contract the services of bigger MSSPs to provide services that they don't have the capabilities or the skill sets for. That's what I think is happening right now. But I'm yet to see how it's going to evolve, where you're looking at this kind of partnership within the local industry players.
Mm. Yeah, because I suppose internationally, different organizations, different scales, different geographies, and actually that's why the MSP always crops up as a business model, because there is a 50-mile sweet spot where they have service for their customers, much as there's the enterprise MSS who could service Australian clients and Ghanaian clients, and there's another type of MSS that focuses on great customer service and the local touch. So there was always going to be something like that. So then where do we go with this? Because I'm thinking we're looking at how to improve the end customer MSS and MSP relationship. And I'm comparing and contrasting with a few different geographies. Hey, at other events in Africa, very big place, obviously, but I won't name the country, but they suggested, oh, this will just be built into the ISP offerings in the future. But I don't think the tailored touch can ever be given by the ISP because it's got far too many clients. Where else do we think there's room for growth? I don't know, Isaac. What do you think the business landscape is going to get ready for? Everything plus security. So we'll start to, I don't know, have your mobile phone contract plus security. Your grocery deliveries plus security. I'm making things up now, but that type of and model as opposed to core model.
Well, yes, that is true. I mean, I agree with what Edem said. I think looking at our landscape now, it's pretty, I dare say it's pretty small and it's pretty young. And I think collaboration is the way to go. If an MSP does not have, let's say, specific or what's it called? Some speciality in cybersecurity, it is not, incumbent on them to add that as a service. They can easily partner with MSSPs who are already in that space so that it can be more or less like a service provision on their part. They are the middlemen, they offer technical support as well. And then we collaborate. I think our market is still growing, and to say we, or let's say MSP should add that on whilst they are not qualified to, because that we all know that space is very technical. The certifications, the licenses is very important. And so for me, I think collaboration is the way to go. For now, we should look at collaborating and partnering with MSSPs, whether locally or outside of the country, so that again, that also builds our capacity, it builds our knowledge base, it builds our experience, and over time, we will grow into that situation whereby we can probably have an MSP who would have been able to grow into an MSSP, or grown into that point where he can offer the services of an MSSP. So yeah, I think collaboration is what we need now going forward, and through that, we can be able to build capacity and expand.
Okay. And then on that partnerships topic, Edem, what would your message be to the end customers to sort of get more out of that partnership, more out of that collaboration? I know I asked before about whether or not they ask good questions, but maybe we could expand on that.
Yeah, I think you need to focus more on the leaders of those organizations. You need to start from the top, from the board level. Now, cybersecurity risk is a part of enterprise risk. First, IT was relegated to, one side of things, and especially within the banks, they were more concerned about credit risk, operational risk, those kind of things. But now cybersecurity is now part of that whole enterprise risk. So depending on the kind of company you are, whether you're a small company, whether you're a mid-sized company, whether you're, mid-tier, or, even a company with a footprint within the region in Africa, you still need to understand that where we're coming from, from the backdrop of COVID, the world has changed significantly. And Isaac mentioned that whole digital transformation drive where if you don't get on that journey, you're going to be extinct. You cannot talk about digital transformation without talking about securing your digital assets. So first of all, I think they need to come to that understanding. First of all, to appreciate where we are right now, which is, it's a global phenomenon, right? Once they can understand that, then everything else can fall into place. They need to start getting interested in, looking at directives from the BOG. They need to look at the directives from the National Cybersecurity Act. They need to understand what it involves. They need to understand that you need to have a security budget as well. It's not even just about a budget. It's about the skills gap. Because you can't even, if you had the money, get all the resources because they're just not available, just scarce. So what works for you? You know, ask yourself, what works for me? You know, is my organization liquid enough or financially strong enough to build an in-house team? Do I do a hybrid model? Do I outsource? You need to start thinking about these decisions now. And so that when, you know, things get more, I mean, as we progress, by next year, you know, when the act is enforced and these requirements are, you know, they start banging on your door, you don't have nothing to say. You need to have a plan. So I think this is what I would say, you know, this is what should spark, you know, that thought process for these business owners. And automatically that should put them in a comfortable position where they can now start asking the right questions, you know, start engaging people and understanding how they are going to, you know, roll out their, you know, protection plan or, you know, implement these baseline controls to also be not only protected as a business, but to also be compliant with these regulations or these requirements. You know, so I think it starts from a bit of introspection, understanding where they are in business competition, the whole business landscape globally, and I mean, securing the assets, because that's where we are right now in the world.
Yeah, and I'm sure compliance will force their hand if they don't act, and they know about compliance. They already know, which is really, really key. All right. Well, conscious of time, Isaac, any sort of parting thoughts? This debate, this more relaxed fireside chat, I like it. You know, the MSS of the future. What do you think we're going to see? Are we going to see one that offers everything or specific things, or are we going to see some sort of new I don't know, mobile first type technology? I know it's a bit of futurology, but I think it's always nice to ask.
I think the future is exciting, and especially for us here in Ghana, there are lots of opportunities in that space. But however, I believe that we need to be able to start small. Though you know, the technology elsewhere, you know, as far advanced, where in other places we are looking at how we could even employ MSS in the metaverse and all of that. But I believe here we need to be able to start small, look at you know, prefer, you know, specific solution, tailored solutions, look at the level of risk here, the type of businesses here, the type of customers here, their risk appetite, and the level of threats, again, that, you know, are likely to come into or are likely to throw in here. Well, anyways, I know, you know, the space, you know, keeps evolving, it keeps changing, and you can't isolate yourself from, you know, what's happening in America or in Europe or in Asia. And but all the same, I still think that we need to be able to start small, start with the little things, implement these small things, or start with the small things that will rope everybody on, you know, at that point in time, so that in the next, you know, medium to long term, we can have a setting where we can attain that level where about 80%, 90% of all our MSMEs or SMEs, you know, have that level of security or cyber, you know, secure systems to be able to thrive, you know, on the digital platform with regards to our digital, you know, transformation agenda. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I like that, and that agenda is what drives us forward. I tell you what, we're going to see more of Edem, but Edem and Isaac, thank you for being such great panelists. I really appreciate you coming on. I hope this is a slightly different format that we all can take a lot away from. I'll give you a big virtual round of applause, and yes, I'll put you, Isaac, back in the audience.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful.
Thanks very much. I like that. And yes, please keep those comments coming. If you are commenting in the Zoom chat, please do select everyone so it comes to everyone. Otherwise, it just comes to me, which is fine if that is your intention. We are also using the hashtag MSS Ghana. We'd encourage you to make a post perhaps on LinkedIn, Facebook. No one has done a TikTok dance yet, so maybe that's a little bit of a challenge for you. Please keep those comments coming. And if you do post using this hashtag, that just means that we can see what you have posted, and we can help promote it as well. So Edem is very kindly going to moderate our next panel, where we're looking at the future talent the future engineer, because just as we've had the future CISO who will lead everything, so it's very important to look at the engineer behind it. And you know, some of the pressures we can talk about include pressures on the technical specialist to you know, oh, you can't communicate, or you know, you have more business skills. But actually, there's a lot of things to cherish from you know, the world of the engineer. So we're going to have engineers from a wide range of backgrounds, and I'm just welcoming them up to the stage, making sure that everyone is there before I hand over. Are you excited, Edem?
Yeah, very, very, very excited.
It's something a bit new, because you know, this is quite a spectrum. Some of these panelists haven't been on you know, events before, so it's really important to sort of cast a wide net. Let me just make sure I've got everybody. Felix, I've invited you. Yeah, and if you can turn your cameras on, that'd be amazing. Just So I will leave you in Edem's capable hands. But on our panel, we are delighted to welcome Felix Duodu, Network Operations Center Engineer, Surfline Communications, Stella Quadzodu, who is a stock analyst and student, Daniel Gimmer, Cybersecurity Stock Analyst at Cyberhawk Limited, and Clement Mensah, who is a Cybersecurity Engineer. I'm going to leave it in Edem's capable hands, but yes, excited for this panel.
Hello. Thank you, Pelham. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm excited to welcome this. You. Fantastic. I'm very happy to be moderating this interesting conversation with you guys. And we're going to be speaking about the security engineer of the future. All right. In today's you know, cybersecurity industry, we always hear about, you know, the security architect, you know, this super guy. So my first question is going to go to Felix, and I want to ask, who is the security architect, you know, today? Who is the security architect? Can you hear me?
Okay, Edem. Edem, so when we talk about a security architect, it's somebody who is in charge of designing the network security as well as the company setup to make sure it requires and then meets the standard to avoid any form of threats to the business.
Okay. So sometimes the lines get blurred between, you know, who the security architect is and who the security engineer is. So do you think that, you know, this architect works, you know, by himself, or is this a team within an organization that actually makes these things happen?
In my opinion, both the security architect and then the engineer work together. So the engineer is to make sure security policies as well as organization standards are being met in an organization. So basically, he helps drive the organizational security agenda.
Okay. Clement, what do you think? Do you have any thoughts?
I can just put this as an architect will be part of a management team who actually tries to put everything together, whilst an engineer will be somebody who is just in there to implement or do configurations to whatever the architect has already been placed in there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So Sheila, you're currently studying, I believe. Are you a security engineer? Sorry, I didn't hear that. Stella. Oh, sorry, Stella. Okay, yes. So I wanted to ask, so what is going to be special about, you know, the next generation of security engineers, especially now that we're looking at what's going on in Ghana with, you know, these regulatory requirements, and definitely a need for security personnel to be able to work and perform or implement those controls like Felix and Clement have said?
Okay, so good morning to everyone once again, and thank you for having me. Basically, a security engineer basically builds a system or the computer systems or the systems that are used to protect the computer systems and then networks, and then they also track incidents as well. So our future engineers are supposed to have certain skills. They are supposed to, first of all, they are supposed to love computing systems. It's a must. They should be comfortable with, I would say they should be comfortable with reading code. That's also quite important because all those things come together to, how do I, like, they work hand in hand, like all of that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, are you there? What are some of the skills that these security engineers would need, to be able to be, I guess, to differentiate themselves and be able to, like Stella said, have the skills to be able to respond to incidents, to be able to understand security configuration, security controls, and also to be able to work, I guess, with an architect, to have that overall enterprise security protection in place. Daniel, can you hear me?
I think it could be a microphone selection issue.
Yes, I think so.
Because you're not on mute.
Yeah. Okay, so Clement, I'll come back to you with that. Daniel, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I still hear you.
Okay, great. We can hear you now. Yeah. So
okay, so I was saying that thank you for the opportunity to also share my bit on this topic. For a security architect, where there are certain key things that you need to have to be able to play a very key role in some of these things. So, for instance, you need to have an understanding of how events come about, how these correlations between the security operations and then how the infrastructure of an organization work. You need to be able to understand how logins are, how log management are. When it comes to how be able to even understand regex, regular expressions, because some of these logs that you would need to be able to rewrite them so that they can feed into your same solutions as an MSS. There are other areas when it also has to come with Python scripts. That is, if you are encountered with an environment where you need to set up a port scanning utility for you to understand what happens in that environment, you will need to understand Python scripts. Yeah, there's a lot of experiences or skills you would need to also have. For me, I'll use myself as an example. I came from the programming part of IT, so there are some web pen testing that I started before I came into the scene. So there were web developments, so I understood how web technologies work, how cloud system works, how the kind of protocols you should expect when you're dealing with any web interfaces or web controls or some of these things. So these are some of the things that I think as an architect or cybersecurity person, you should have at your fingertips, so that when it comes to giving your quota, you'll be there to also assist.
Yeah, very interesting perspective. You said things like regex, and I mean, it sounds very complicated. Clement, do you have any, are there any other skill sets that Daniel probably didn't mention that came to mind in terms of this security engineer person and how they can actually help organizations in their specific roles. Your mic is on mute. Can you kindly unmute?
Like as he said, he is from the programming background. Mostly the first thing you need to do is with this cybersecurity space, people are now trying to move from any other disciplines. So you could see somebody who is a finance person who wants to just go into cybersecurity. You could see somebody from any other field trying to also come into cybersecurity. The best thing we need to also get to know is which route is the person coming from, like you asked. My perception is you need to know what you're looking for, which field you want to be in, because when it comes to cybersecurity, it's very broad and you can't know everything within the space, but you need to also specialize on one. Like you mentioned, one, you have to get a programming background as well. I didn't do programming. I studied it on my own, like C#, C++, Python, and others. I did it on my own just to understand it because I am coming from the system administration background, purely networking, trying to get other systems in there. So it's based on where the person is coming from and the desire to know what they need to know. If you want to go into web pen testing, you have to know the procedures and other things you need to do. Maybe try more hands on the CTFs, that's the capture the flag platforms, like the try hack me and then hack the box and others. These are going to help you to get a fair knowledge of how cybersecurity space is, how to capture a flag, and then know how best you can do to secure a system. That's something little I can share.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that helps. If there's any audience or members in the audience who are, who know anybody who is looking to get into the field, I think you're getting some good tips here. And it also sounds as if you can't have one security engineer who knows everything, right? So we need to look at a team of engineers who have sort of skill sets that complement each other. Felix, do you think that that is true in terms of today's, workplace environment, or you don't agree with that?
Yes. So what I would say is there's this popular saying that I have come to learn. Okay, so to be able to protect something, you really have to know and then understand how that thing works. And then once you know and then you know its weakness, then you can look at how you can strengthen it. So with cybersecurity, I think you need so many kind of skill sets. For example, you should have your basics when it comes to hardware. You should do a basic of your networking. You should know about app applications. As in that you should know a little about mobile applications. You should know a little about web applications, because these days things have changed. Like attackers are trying to find new ways of, bringing down systems down through different vulnerabilities and different loopholes. So for you to be very good at what you do, you have to have a little bit of skills from each side. Because for instance, you need to understand how devices communicate from the basic level, and then from their very weak points, then you'll be able to strengthen up your systems.
Okay, very interesting. So Stella, what do you think, what kind of professional certifications are out there, or are there any professional certifications out there that people can take that will help them to, become or develop better skills in building up their role or career as a security engineer?
Yes. Okay. So, as my colleague said, before you enter into cybersecurity, or specifically the engineering part of cybersecurity, and because cybersecurity is very broad, we have the cyber risk management, we have the security engineer, we have the analysts, we have the security awareness team. They basically, all that they do is to educate the employees of the company or third parties on what to do, what not to do, and all that. So basically, before you enter into cybersecurity, I would say you should do some research, because cybersecurity is very broad. Like we have lots of career opportunities, and I think we even have I'm sure there would even be new ones coming up and all that. So you do a lot of research to figure out what kinds of career opportunities exist, and the kinds of training, education, and certificates that might be required to obtain these kinds of positions. And then a degree is very important. For entry-level positions, you should have a degree in you can have a degree in information technology, computer science, mathematics, yeah, that's for entry level. For the management level, they go with the masters and then the PhDs. And then so after the degree, then you have the certifications. For me, I'm currently in Germany, and I'm doing my masters. The companies here do not, most of them do not ask you for certifications for entry level like jobs. They ask for your degree. Then when you get into the company, they pay for some, not all of them. Some of them actually pay for these certifications for you. But for positions like management positions, like maybe cyber risk management, cyber or security engineer, a security engineer manager and all that, they assume before you go to the management level, you have a number of years of experience. And with that comes the certification, like the CISSP, the CH, and then the others. So they demand for those ones. So entry levels usually do not demand for the certifications. That's what I know. Currently, I don't know how it is in Ghana, but yeah, basically that's the way it is here.
Okay, I mean, that's very interesting. I wish things were as easier and straightforward in Ghana, but I'll come back to Daniel. I mean, Daniel, that is definitely not the case in Ghana. And what are your thoughts on this in terms of if somebody wants to get into the space or become a security engineer or even an architect, what I've taken from what you guys said initially is, I think that person needs to be somebody, first of all, who likes to do research on their own, who likes to tinker around with things, who likes to find out how things work. That I think is a prerequisite, to be honest with you. But then in terms of the job industry and being employable, what do you think are some of these professional certifications that or current certifications that will actually aid in their professional development from where you sit and where you work as well? Your mic is on mute. Hello, Daniel, are you there? I don't know if we still have Daniel on the line. In that case, I think I'll just, Clement, can you respond to that?
Okay. Like as Stella was saying, in other countries, they are requesting for degrees, and in the same tech industry, others don't also want to find out whether you have a degree or not. The only thing is they give you the information. If you can be able to fix it, or when you're being given something to look at, if you're able to get it through and get the work done, it's based on what you know, then you'll be employed in. But unlikely for us in this country, looking for a cybersecurity company to work with is sometimes difficult. Because I will use myself as an example. When I left the PPP scan group, and then I wanted to venture into the cybersecurity space. The challenge I had was companies will actually send information onto LinkedIn and others trying to get people to apply for and then have interviews. You go for some of the interviews and then the questions they will be asking you are like, they just pick a sample questions from Google and then they are just asking you as if you have to know everything from it. But the main thing is if the person is bringing up a set, letting you know that I have this qualification, maybe I have CEH qualification, I have this and that, you have to also know that the person already has put in much effort in by studying, by making sure that they know their basics and others. So getting a degree is not only the only thing. You can get a degree, but you may not have the technical know-how until you get another professional set attached to it. I decided to rather go with the technical know-how first before approaching for the degree, so that in case there is no market in there for my specifications or my specialities, I can do something as a freelancer to make things work whilst I pursue for my degree. And in kind of a way, it's working for me. But it looks like most of the approaches that other companies and other people are using in getting people for cybersecurity roles may have to vary. Just last week, last Monday, I saw someone put on LinkedIn that they don't mind whether you have a degree or not. They don't mind whether you have the skill. Just come and show us if you can do this job. If you can, and then you are being tested for it, then the job is yours. So I think sometimes the certification may help, and in another way around too, you may have the certificate, but you not have the technical know-how about how you can go about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, because for me personally, if I was hiring, somebody within the roles of, let's say, security analyst or security engineer, to be honest with you, I personally wouldn't be looking for a degree. I want to see somebody who actually has that, that desire to learn, that desire to understand things, who is coachable. These are other qualities that, let's say, I would be looking out for. But Felix, how do you think we are going to recruit that guy who's going to be the star engineer, and actually come in and be able to do so many things, identify incidents, be able to re-engineer malware, blah, 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 blah. How do we actually recruit or identify and recruit people like that?
Well, I think for me, it should first start with a passion. You have to be passionate about the whole thing. And then you should also make a lot of research. And then you should start learning on your own, because these days you can go to YouTube and then there are so many learning materials for you to practice. You can also set up your own lab environment, because I think in the issue of cybersecurity, it's more of practicality. You need to learn, you need to start something on your own. So you can actually start by building your own virtual boxes and then, learning. And then at the end of the day, it's something you have to prove. This is what I'm capable of. So in my opinion, degree is a good thing, but it's more of being able to do what you've actually studied on.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And you'd agree with me that security engineers are operating at that very highly technical space where, I mean, they are dealing with, let's say, the ones and the zeros, and with the traffic communications and with the configurations and security controls and everything, and they tend to be very, very, very technical. So there's this notion that they don't have that ability to communicate. So within your organization, what does it look like right now in terms of these security engineers who sometimes have to speak to people in like senior or middle management when you have a specific incident or you have a specific event or something that needs to be communicated? What do you think is the level of communication? Do you think it's true that they lack communication skills, or they don't even understand the business? And how is that limiting, or right now, currently?
I think you're right. Most security or engineers are usually typical people. They prefer to do the work, but when it comes to communicating, it's usually a big problem. It's a barrier. But I would also suggest that aside acquiring the hard skill, that is having your certifications and other things, it's also important to have a soft skills that has to help you with communication. Because sometimes they tend to communicate in a more technical way that makes it a bit unmeaningful to the other parties. So, but I would also think communication should also be improved on.
Okay. Daniel, are you there? You seem to have a black screen. I don't know if you're still. Okay, it looks like Daniel might be having some connection issues or maybe microphone issues. So Clement, also, I mean, is this something peculiar within your environment in terms of, where these techies have to actually interface with, other parts of the business? And do you see that really they are lacking these communication skills? And I mean, how can we push them along to actually, build that confidence? Because let's be very honest with ourselves. You can't really be stuck in a technical role forever, and you also need to grow as an individual, as a professional. And a great deal of that is, how you hone your interpersonal and your communication skills. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. When you were saying, I was just smiling because I also fell into that same thing. When I started my role, it was difficult for me communicating what the actual problem is. You come to work in the morning, then all of a sudden, internet is not working in the whole building. You have to troubleshoot and get your things back up so that everybody will start using the internet. But if anybody comes to me, I was finding it very difficult to communicate to them, letting them know what the exact problem is. Because when you come and I'm just doing my network troubleshooting and finding other means to get it to work, I may not know how to channel that energy in explaining that to you. But with time, I realized that when you're working with a group of people, a team, it helps a lot, because when you are doing a solo thing, it's different based on how you are thinking. And then when you are in a group, at least if maybe you are putting everything together, somebody is doing this, somebody is doing that, you'll be able to vividly say that, okay, for somebody who has no knowledge about whatever you're doing, okay, I'm trying to do A, then after A, I'll try B. If B works, then we stay on B and then make it work and monitor. If A and B, it's fine, then we'll go with it. Like example, Mr. Robot, the series movie like this, he is a person who is more of a cybersecurity person by day and then a black hat by night. When there are problems for him to fix, he doesn't know how to communicate with you, and everybody thinks he wasn't a very clear guy who actually understood whatever was happening. But for him, he knew whatever he was doing. So I think with time and with him, like as Felix was also explaining, with time, you'll be able to adjust yourself and then know how best you can do it. Because now, when I see a lay person, I now have to switch my mood from being that techie guy and then be the person's level and then try to let the person understand what is going on by using their own, maybe sometimes I try using their field and then explain to them using their field so that they will understand it clearer, or use another angle that will make them understand the thing that goes on.
Okay, interesting, very, very interesting. So are there do you think security architects currently who have come from that, those roles as security engineers or analysts now, and I mean, this ability to better communicate has actually helped them to be in the current positions?
Yes, I think it's helping. From the first sections that we had, I realized others were talking about the CISO environment and others. If you have the chains, and then when there are other problems and you're solving them, whether it's cyber related or a network related or whatever, application related or whatever it is. Since there are other people that can communicate to the main people about whatever the issue is, the main technical guy can just be doing whatever he needs to be done on that technical level, and then try to pull up all those information, giving it to any higher management who is also having the same understanding about whatever thing that is going on, so that the person can communicate with the entire group about whatever is happening and then how it's going to be resolved as well.
Okay. Stella, do you think communication skills is something that you would advise that young techies start picking up before they actually get into the workforce? Or you think that they should just focus on the whole, tinkering and stuff, and then build that part of their skill sets when they're actually in employment?
I think the communication skills is key. Like, it's important because the role itself requires communication with cybersecurity professionals. Sorry, because here you are building. So you need to know what questions to ask your bosses or the company which you are building their security system for. You need to ask them questions. What do they want their system to look like? What should their system do? And all that is communication. And then when you are on the field also, when you are monitoring the systems and all that, you serve as a bridge between say employees and then the management level. So communication is key at that level also, at that instance also. Yeah, so communication is quite important right from the beginning. You should know how to communicate even before you get onto the cybersecurity field. It's much more important, especially today that we are dealing with third parties.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you, because I think that a lot of people get stuck in their career path because they don't know how to communicate.
Yes.
And they don't know how to relate. They can be very, very good technically, but then, they tend to probably get stuck, and that's not a very nice place to be. So I think I agree with you. It's something that people should start taking on. So, things are always moving very quickly in the IT space. And now you guys probably know about containers and, stuff like container orchestration and Kubernetes, and coming up different kinds of, what do you call them? Basically spawning new containers and just deploying applications at scale. So this whole conversation of DevSecOps, is it something that, because traditionally we know that programmers, for example, didn't really put security into their programming. They thought about it after, and then you have this whole concept of the DevSecOps where you're trying to move security into the pipeline, right? Before you're actually done with your end products or whatever. So is that something that is widely, is it widespread, in your workplaces or in terms of environments? Is this something that is actually becoming a need or a requirement? Still, I think you can comment from that from a German perspective, and then we can come down to our Ghanaian budget.
Okay. So with that one, what I would comment on is academically, based on the academic level. So yes, we are talking about communication again in relation to
DevSecOps, like development, security operation, in terms of like containerization and building these pipeline for containers. I don't know if we've moved away from the communication. We're talking about DevSecOps. Is it something that is, let's say, becoming more mainstream within your organization, or, is it something that is not really spoken about?
Yes. So when it comes to DevSecOps, you right from right from the design phase to the deployment phase, there should be communication, because like for the design phase, again, you need to communicate with stakeholders, and then they need to let you know what they want, what needs to go into the design phase, and then all that. And then onto the next stage also. I'm really not familiar with this.
The CICD, continuous integration, continuous development. Who's the programmer here?
I think Daniel should be, and he's also not here.
He's not here. So okay, fine. I mean that's okay. But let me ask before I move to Felix. Do you think that there's a push for DevSecOps in where you work, or whether you're interacting with other third parties or within that ecosystem? Do you think that there's a push for that, currently within our environment?
I can say yes, but first of all, you have to also check on the threats, and then you have to first analyze and do your researches. It looks like most of the companies here are trying to move to that side using AWS and then Azure and others. Using those platforms, containers and then Dockers and others, it makes work easier because you are trying to virtualize your whole environment and then make it be on a cloud base that anybody can just pick it up and then use. But the other challenge you have here is, as you were saying, programmers do program their softwares, but they don't any security to it. So in this case, as you are putting all those applications in there, you just have to understand that you need to get a security person in to also try and maintain your systems for you. Example like Netflix, which is also a cloud-based thing. If Netflix is just having the software base in there and then they are just pumping videos into them for people to watch, definitely there are other evil guys that will also try to come in to steal credentials and do others, which sometimes it happens. But in this case, if you are security cautious about it, when you are putting all those information in play, you also have to understand that it's not only the programmer's job to do that. Even when you are including third parties in it, you have to also do your assessment to find out that whatever it is that they are going to give to you, it's going to be a secured one to use. When I learned about the Docker and containers and others, I decided to work it out myself. So I tried using Linode as an example. Creating an account with Linode, try to install my own Kali version on the web and then use other things, which was making work easier because after putting some few works over there, some Python scripts and other files in there, wherever I get to, I just log into my credentials and then run those applications. And it was easy for me. But the next thing I was also thinking about was the cost. What if I don't have enough money to pay for the cost and other things? Then meaning I have to find another option. So based on that, I have to build my own file server in the house, try to create an SSH path link, and then using a VPN connection so that I'll be able to have access to those things. So those things are quite good. It's better and it makes technology looks easier to use. But the other thing is that whatever it is that a programmer or a developer is trying to put in place should also put in mind that they need a security person to also come in there to do the assessment on it before even putting it online for others to use.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I don't know if containerization is something that is really big right now. To be honest, I don't really know whether, for example, telcos are deploying more container technology and, like Kubernetes, Docker technology and stuff like that. But then we're running out of time. I just want to ask, I think, my final question, and it should go around to everyone. So we're speaking about the security engineer of the future. I think we are in very exciting times right now in the country. And one of the panel members in the first panel discussion actually said, it's exciting to be within the space now, because we are all of a sudden finding ourselves to be part of something that is really unfolding right now, okay? What do you think when you're looking at the regulatory landscape in terms of critical infrastructure, information infrastructure organizations having to comply with these mandates. Down the line, it means that they're going to need these security engineers. You know, this security engineer of the future that we're talking about, what role do you think they're going to play within, you know, our cyber ecosystem here in Ghana? And I think I'll ask Felix that question first. Felix, are you still there?
Yes. So I think security now is not a luxury, but it's a necessity. So from the way things are going, it will be very crucial for every organization to have a super engineer who has a cybersecurity background to help carry the operations going on. Because data is also an asset to the business. And then as such, you need something to be able to protect your organization.
Okay. Clement, any thoughts?
I like what Felix is saying. It's like key that you have to find ways and ways to protect them. So also,
Hello, Clement, can you check your connection? I think it's garbled. Can't really hear it as clear as before.
Can you hear me now?
No, is it just me? There's a bit of noise in like a connection problem or something.
Better now.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, we can't hear. It's all of a sudden it just deteriorated. Can you try?
Okay. Yeah.
No. Clement, it's not working. I'll have to pass on the question to Stella. And
is it better now?
No, it's crackling all of a sudden.
Okay.
Yeah, like Mr. Robot. So let me just ask Stella. I don't know if it sounds like the wire. Stella, what do you think? I know you're not in Ghana right now, but there's definitely a push, you know. We're looking at a situation where companies have no choice but to actually start taking cybersecurity extremely seriously, you know. So the question is, you know, this security engineer of the future, you guys, you know, what do you think we need to do, you know, to help let the rubber meet the road, you know, because at the end of the day, we just care about having organizations in a state where they are secure, right? How do you think we are actually going to help?
Okay, so I would say we are going digital now, especially in Ghana. After COVID, the world has changed. You can't talk about digital transformation without talking about IT security. So I would say in Ghana, we are doing well. Most of the businesses, the financial institutions and all that, they're incorporating IT security into their companies and all that. But we, as the engineers that are coming up, I would say, as you know, anything that you involve technology to definitely has a vulnerability. Hackers are getting smarter. So I would say we should also get ahead of them. So I know tech guys, we don't like to do a lot of reading, but reading is a must. Like we need to read a lot to know what is going on out there. What the threats are, what the vulnerabilities are, and all of that. Let me see. Currently, I know most businesses, even here, how do I say it? Most businesses have little budgets for when it comes to IT security. But they are making up for it. They are taking IT security quite serious right now because of all of this situations that we are hearing of, like all of these incidents, let me put it that way. Almost every day there is something and all of that. So they are spending much to train their employees based on all of these things. So I think in order for you to with the upcoming ones, we need to read a lot. We need to be abreast with technology. We need to know maybe where the world is getting to digitally and all of that, so that we can always be ahead of the hacker or the attacker. That's
Okay,
what
thank you. Thank you. Clement, did you sort that out?
Am I better now?
Yes, much better now. So yes, I think yeah, over to you now. You were speaking before.
I think when it comes to cybersecurity, it shouldn't be left for only IT guys to be the one to champion it. Everyone should be responsible for whatever it is that is in there, whether you are using your phone, you are using your computer, you are in an organization, or you are home. You have to have the knowledge of what you need to do. I think dedicating only the month of October as a cybersecurity awareness month is not key, because after October, then what? We wouldn't know what to do next. We are just quiet and then trying to work at the background. But to me, from what you were asking, the best thing we have to do is everybody should be responsible for everything that happens, and then should be on the lookout for all those things, especially here in Ghana. Cyber frauds are just coming in and there with mobile money. Others are using social engineering things to get all those places. But the best thing we have to do is we have to also educate more people, so that instead of we having more work on the IT or the the IT department, we will rather be looking out for other people who are also looking out for those things, so that more works will not be on the IT. IT will be able to check the flow of the network and then check the security of the whole systems. But the individuals should also be responsible in checking for links and other things, so that they wouldn't be causing more harms in receiving ransoms and then other things as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. That was a very interesting conversation, and I'm very grateful for you guys for sharing your thoughts and having you here with us. And I think I'll pass it over to Pelham.
Fantastic, and I like that, because that is maybe the key discussion. Who is the future of this security relationship? And you know what? Engineers will pivot throughout careers between end customers, third parties. It's important to gain a wealth of many sides of many fences. I don't want to just say both sides of the fence, because MSS, MSP, and customer consultant, there's lots of career pathways. And I love the questions you ask, because should we celebrate being technical? Or in the future, is being technical at today's standard going to be the bare minimum of operating? Like, no way would I put on my CV, I know Microsoft Word. You wouldn't, that's just a silly example. But I think there's real legs to this debate, and I'm really pleased to look at tomorrow's engineer, or the super engineer, as well. So Stella, Daniel, Clement, Felix, and of course our moderator Edem, a big virtual round of applause for you, and I will put you back in the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, please keep those comments coming, and I really appreciate all of your help. Edem, what an interesting time we've had. I know it's our first event in Ghana, and I know you're instrumental behind us doing it. So I'm excited. I mentioned before that I have done other events regionally, in that we've done the MSS Nigeria, the MSS Senegal. We're keen to make friends with countries regardless of language, and so I think it's quite interesting. I'm interested in your thoughts in the possibility. When people talk about international cooperation, people think collaboration between the UK and Ghana, right? But there are countries closer to home. Do you think there's scope for managed security service collaboration across ECOWAS, across maybe even just Cote d'Ivoire, Togo. I don't know, right? You know, something closer to home. Do you think there's scope for that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we all agree that this is a journey that we've just sort of embarked on. So it's very, very early days. And as time goes on, we're looking at increasing our maturity, understanding, you know, not only the threat landscape, but also the business. And when you look at Ghana, and some of the mandates that they have in the CyberSecurity Act, there's a specific requirement for sharing information, right? You have, for example, the National CERT, which is the Computer Emergency Response Team. And then you have different sectoral sets, all right? Now, as a player within the space, we definitely are looking at having a lot of specialization when it comes to response, all right? Then you're looking at cross-regional collaboration where, you know, Ghana is sharing threat information with Kenya, with Zimbabwe, with Uganda. We recently signed an MOU with 2 countries, I think Zambia and Rwanda, all right? And I think that part of this whole cybersecurity collaboration is key. I mean, one of the key things is sharing information or knowledge on threats. So it's something that is definitely going to grow. Right now, it's in the beginning stages, so you can't really see anything going on now. But definitely, we are already positioned, you know, looking at something like an ISAC, where you have an information sharing and an analysis center, where you're sharing information. Information sharing is very critical because if you look at the banking sector right now, and Bank A gets attacked, and MSS, some MSS organization comes in and does their compromise assessment or their response work or the forensics, and they find these threat indicators or these indicators of compromise, the best thing to do to protect the other institutions is to share that indicators of compromise or indicators of attack so that they can actually defend themselves before that threat comes knocking on their door. So it's a very, very, very critical aspect of the whole cybersecurity threat intelligence landscape, and, you know, coupled with information sharing and also acting as a defensive measure. So it's something that I guess we are positioning ourselves to, and I'm sure that the other, as the maturity grows across the other private industry players across the region, we will find ourselves from an industry perspective, sort of just building that capacity in as part of the services that we're offering or providing. You know, so I don't know whether it's us who's going to lead it as industry, or, you know, working in line with the different frameworks of the cybersecurity mandates, you know, and sort of plugging into it.
Yeah, and that I mean, that is interesting because chicken and egg. If the government puts if the government puts in place a legal framework that says on a government level, Ghana and Nigeria can exchange threat intel, right? Then, whilst it has been physically possible before, now more businesses will go, oh, maybe I will offer services to Nigeria. And, you know, we know that, you know, Ghana has a great reputation in the region. Why not? You know, Nigerians might very well trust a Ghanaian partner. But I suppose you know, it does depend on infrastructure, because if you were to go north and try and supply to Burkina Faso, then maybe the local infrastructure may not support a 24/7 SOC run from Ghana, not because Ghana's infrastructure isn't there, but because maybe theirs has problems. So it is interesting, isn't it? When we run this event in the States, we talk about, should Florida have a Californian partner? But that makes sense in a way, because it's the same kind of, it's the same country, isn't it? Even though it's different jurisdictions. When we look at the UK, we often have partners from the Netherlands and partners from Germany. And I guess I'm just wondering if there's a business appetite to do it across ECOWAS.
Yes, I mean, like with this new African free trade push, that is actually acting as an enabler for businesses within that region, you definitely also need to think about the cybersecurity aspects of that trade. Okay, you need to have infrastructure available to protect, that trade and the information flows that go back and forth, across these private companies within these different regions. So if we look at it from that framework, okay, because I think after there's an ECOWAS initiative or partner or something like that, then it means that we probably need to rely on the government or those bodies to either set up some kind of a framework so that that also enables the private companies to use that or leverage that to start sharing information on threats, on threat intelligence, because it's really important. I mean, like, I think the Ministry of Communications understands that by it, designating different sectors to be responsible for, responding to threats. And what do you do when you have that? You have to share that information. So if you're looking at it like from a regional perspective, then I think that the industry can go ahead and start. We can identify partners in Kenya and think, hey, look, we want to collaborate with you. Industry can push it, but I think it won't really go far until it's sort of a collective effort where the government understands the need and is creating an enabling environment for industry to actually work and to produce those results that need to be delivered.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that would give industry confidence, confidence that I haven't just set up this wonderful service to Nigeria and then, someone's actually cut the internet.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, that's really dramatic, but, and there's other ways around it, obviously, but and hey, there are nice infrastructure initiatives. Maybe I think 10 years ago there were some great fiber optic cables laid along the Gold Coast all the way down to South Africa, which greatly improved connectivity. Anyone who is actually on the coast seems to have really great prospects. It is, in many countries where they're in the interior with no access to the coast, that's different, but that's why Ghana is doing well. You've got great energy industry, you've got great finance industry, you've got great tech industry just burgeoning up. And yes, I did the whole thing with my tie before, but that kind of connects. I want to make the connection. I really enjoyed the events that I held in Accra. So what about you? Are you looking for partners and friends in Nigeria? I know that we're going to have you speak at our Nigerian event next year as well. But I just thought I'd ask you. Are you looking to collaborate yourself?
I mean, definitely, because we live in a world right now where I think you can't really achieve the kind of success that we envision by working, by yourself. We need partners. We need industry partners. We just actually finished signing an agreement with a company in the US where we just started to collaborate on specific lines of business when it comes to consulting and advisory services. We have a company in Nigeria. We've actually incorporated it into Nigeria. So Nigeria is one of our markets that we are actually currently operating in. And so we're always looking for partners to help extend our reach and to grow the brand, because you can't really operate. We have a model where we're looking at delivering our services both locally within Ghana and regionally. So you're looking at a world today where everything is cloud-based. We can actually sit down here and manage security for clients in Namibia, in Tanzania, because it's possible. So the question now becomes, why not take advantage of that? And in taking advantage of that, you definitely need industry partners. You need people on the ground. You need people that understand, the markets, people that understand the culture and how you can actually plug in there. So we are definitely looking to collaborate. And I think finding the right partners is one of the biggest challenges, because with cybersecurity, you can't afford to lack discipline. You know, you need high levels of discipline, high levels of commitment. And so I think that once you can identify the partners that, you know, have those ethics and stand for those kind of things, are very serious, then it's all about having some kind of agreement, understanding on how you work. I think that this has been a challenge for us as a people for a very long time. I think, I don't speak for myself, I think it's something that we all know. Collaboration and partnership among us is quite difficult. So, you know, it's burgeoning. So, Felix, it's very exciting because we are not only where we are in terms of the whole regulatory landscape and managed security services and end users that realize that they need to start protecting their systems or take cybersecurity seriously, but it's also opening us up even, you know, for collaboration, you know, for looking for partnership. So it's really a huge, you know, it's not just technology, it's a huge phenomenon that I think we're facing right now. And it's very exciting, but it also depends on the individuals. You know, how open are we to embrace collaboration? How open are we to embrace transparency? You know, because you need to have transparency in collaboration and you need to open up. So it's more than just technology and regulations. It's also individual psyche, you know, mental as well.
I like that because after all, it is business, and you could either decide to conduct it or not.
Exactly.
Daniel in the audience, you had your hand up. I'll activate your microphone. I think that would be the best thing to do. Daniel, what are your thoughts on this, you know, collaboration piece?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Oh yes.
Okay. I think when it comes to collaboration, most companies are now looking at confidentiality. That is what I think one key thing that when it comes to collaborating with others, you would want to make sure that these information that you are going to be exposed to, are you going to still use the same type of confidentiality? Is this something that we can badge you on? We can have 100% assurity of you not exposing us, and then it also gives the person a bit of room trying to understand, do a background check before they can expose you to what they have, the knowledge and the kind of customers they have. I think they mostly would want to look at how you're coming in, what you are bringing on board before it takes it or it opens itself up for you to also collaborate with you. So that's what I think. But I would want to also find out from Edem if he shares in the same idea of confidentiality. That is reasons why people or some organizations are tending to shun away from doing business with other cybersecurity space we find ourselves in.
Yeah, don't know. I mean, that's very interesting because this is something that has come up before, where, for example, cybersecurity industry players are always frustrated because we don't get jobs, right? That's what everybody's crying about. We don't get jobs. So we want to create, you know, we want to position ourselves and create jobs. Okay, we don't want to sit down and always be reactive. One of the main factors in terms of confidentiality and what Daniel is saying is that most organizations would rather give jobs to foreign resources or foreign experts because they felt that the confidentiality of information was in safer hands, because there's this notion that if you work with a Ghanaian company, you know, very soon, you know, your business is going to be out there because we talk a lot. I think also Daniel, so to me, I think it has to do more. I think that the topic of confidentiality is actually a subset of professionalism. I think that we probably didn't have, we were not able to carve ourselves in a light that said that we are professional. We did the job, we abide by the ethics, and we kept confidentiality or we kept sensitive information confidential. So I think that that inability for Ghanaian businesses to set themselves up and to be looked at as very professional is kind of what led to that problem of confidentiality, because of the unprofessionalism. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think that most of that problem has to do with professionalism. And I think you'd agree with me if I said that over the years, there's been an increase in the professionalism of Ghanaian businesses, and that is actually creating more opportunities where now we can actually sit here on a stage and talk about collaboration between not only MSS parties, but between MSS and SMBs or enterprise-sized organizations.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, because I think that that was something where, I mean, Pelham, like you'd have cases where a company would actually fly in a consultant, pay for their hotels, pay for the transportation to do a job, for 2 weeks. And that was very expensive, but they actually thought it was worth it because they didn't trust Ghanaian businesses, because I guess we lack some kind of professionalism. But that has changed over the last 3 to 5 years. And I think things are beginning to look up again for Ghanaian businesses.
Yeah, I mean,
I also, sorry, I just wanted to add a bit of where I'm coming from or add to what Edem just mentioned. There are solutions. For instance, when we started, we wanted to set up one of the best solutions in Ghana, and then for that we needed to have people or experts who understand these configurations and then setting these things up. And especially the Apex banks all wanted not to deal with Ghanaians, but rather deal with foreigners. In that matter, or in that way, they would feel safer because this is not a Ghanaian. One of the townhouse or countries that has a lot of cybersecurity, we can talk about the Israelis, who have a lot of stake in Ghanaian cyberspace industry, that the banks and then the other organizations have firm belief in, that each cybersecurity solutions they would have, so they tend to fall on these foreigners than the locals. But gradually these narratives are being changed. We have able expertise or knowledgeable cybersecurity experts who are able to do same configurations, same skills, with the same knowledge and understanding as what the, for instance, the Israelis will bring, what the Indians will bring, what the Americans will bring. So we are now closing that gap of having the experts come in, and as well as also being able to carry out the same tasks that were given to the foreigners.
Yeah, that is a great point. And hey, as a foreigner, I know that since the Ghanaian eGov initiative sort of has taken off, and that if I want to, I'll go to the Registrar General's database and I'll type in a company and I'll find a little bit about it. And I mean, it's a small thing, but that suddenly opens up a company's credibility, because okay, well, it's registered with the Registrar General's office, and it was registered in this time, and it's filed these reports, and it looks a little bit more credible. Whereas maybe in the past, I may have had to go to Ghana, and I may have had to go to an office and find, it just makes the collaboration more possible, and more things like that. More, if you get NIST 171 certified, then I can look on the, well, I assume I can look on some database for NIST and find out if that's true. And if just things like that just help create the common language, which I think is really key. And I mentioned before, and hey, this is subjective, but I believe that Ghana is looked to as a trusted country in the region. people seem to like doing business in Ghana. Whether or not that's just my general impression, I don't know. But I think that openness is key. And yes, someone in the audience wrote a nice comment. With the rise in cyber incidents across the globe, it tends to defeat the argument that confidentiality is better handled by foreign entities. Absolutely. Maybe in partnerships, we need to consider more local content, local manufacturing, or in this case, local service provision, which again makes the case for the MSP or the SMSP or the MSSP, because Edem will have the friendships, the local contacts, and yes, you might bundle an XDR, SIEM, some other acronym solution, but you are 100% necessary. Barracuda will never come into Ghana and go, right, I'm selling direct to end customers.
Yeah,
it's just not worth it, and it's a better experience, isn't it, Edem?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I agree with that person's comment, and I think that there's also an issue of trust. You need to trust who you're working with, and like you said, these are our friends. It takes time to build relationships, and I think especially in Ghana, it takes a lot of time for people to actually start trusting you. So we need to build up on all these things that are working in our favor, and also have that, we need to have the capabilities. We need to have the same skill sets that companies might want to import. We need to develop ourselves in terms of understanding the tools that will be required to do the jobs, having the skill sets to perform what needs to be done, whether it's analysis or whatever. We need to, I think we have to work, Helen, to be honest, we have to work on ourselves. As build confidence in us. And in Ghana especially, I think that we place a very high value on trust. So whether that issue of confidentiality is driving people to go to foreign entities or not, I think and whether it's because of rising incidents, I think it's not even relevant if we have an ecosystem where we can build trusted partnerships and trusted relationships. Then I think we wouldn't have those issues, we wouldn't have those problems.
I like it. Good. Well, we are slightly now over time, but I thought this would be an interesting look at the future of the MSS, and hey, global dominance for Ghanaian leaders. I don't know. Let's see where we can go with it. There's a lot of interesting thoughts that we can sort of bundle. But yeah. Edem and our question from Daniel. Thanks very much. I've really enjoyed this session. I'll give you a big round of applause. But yes, to sort of wrap up, I guess, Edem, how can people get in touch with Global Secure Solutions, and what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, they can visit our website. We're very visible on LinkedIn, Facebook, while like on literally almost every social media handle. And our website URL is globalsecure-solutions.com. Just type that in. And I mean, for me, for us, it's been a very interesting ride, Pelham, because 3 years ago, we never spoke about MSS, MSSP, MSP. It wasn't even part of the conversation. I think that COVID has triggered everything. We're having this event because of COVID, to be very honest. And I think for us, we're always looking at what the next requirement is. What is the next gap? And we're always looking to fill it. We're just looking to fill gaps and form partnerships with the right clients. And so we're always looking for innovating new ways of dealing with solutions at affordable local market rates. That's also very, very, very important. So right now, I think my next thing is about building capacity or capabilities for forensics, to be able to handle end-to-end forensic response engagements, threat hunting. So we're actually going to come up with a deal. This is the first time I'm mentioning this, but we're looking at, testing the market to see how they want to assess whether there are threats on their network. So We're looking at offering some kind of threat assessment. So what we're saying is, hey, look, do you know if you have any unwanted malware on your systems? How sure are you that you know that you don't have any? Why don't we come in and do a threat assessment or a threat hunt on a few systems? Let's do the analysis and let's come back to you and say, hey, look, guys, you're good. We didn't find anything, or these are things that you need to take seriously. So I think that that's our next move, and I think you'll be hearing more of that around December.
Yeah, forensics and threat hunting as a service. I like it.
Yeah.
It's definitely getting ahead of the curve, which I think is really key. But yeah, well, thanks very much for your support, inspiration in creating this event. Yeah, we're starting small, just a few panels, just a few sessions, but we want to be respectful. We don't want to rock up and go, boom, it's a 5-day event. You know, people say, well, who are you when you're at home? You know, and I like just being a bit more careful, a bit more considered, and generating a bit of debate. So I've very much enjoyed doing this.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Pelham. It's been really great working with you, working to put this show up on the road, and I mean putting Ghana on the map, you know. And I think that the conversation on the MSS is really, really critical, because for us, the end user, that SME, you know, that small business that can't afford it, they need help. And I think that is one of the reasons why we've valued, you know, your partnership and collaborating to have this.
Well, thanks very much. I will put you back in the audience for the final wrap up. But yeah, thanks very much. And everyone, please do connect to Edem. I'll see you soon.